Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Barden. On a rainy day. Magic Psychic Training 7. A very particular topic we shall deal with on this step concerns the development of the astral senses with regard to the elements. The magician's astral senses have been trained and developed in any case in the course of all the preceding exercises. Nevertheless, there is a need of an extraordinary drill in cases of only poor abilities for one or the other faculty, because every human being is differently talented. Therefore, it will be opportune to quote exercises here which enable the magician to develop the senses of the astral body fast and without difficulties. In the magic mental training of the step 6, the scholar did learn to become conscious of his spirit and to act as a spirit through the astral body as well as through the material one. In pursuance of this, I will deal with one of the most fascinating problems, namely that of clairvoyance. Numerous books have been published about this theme, but the ones which came into my hands did not offer the slightest practical profit to any magician. It is therefore very useful indeed to labour the field of clairvoyance very thoroughly. Generally speaking, clairvoyance means the second sight, as it is popularly named, or the power of seeing, without the use of the eye, events taking place at a distance, actually, or in the future, or having taken place in the past, or seeing deceased people. Very few authors described this power from a psychological or from any other point of view, and that is why it shall be our next task to very thoroughly study the phenomenon of clairvoyance. First of all, the magician will realise that there are various kinds of clairvoyance. The principal kind is the inborn capacity of clairvoyance, which its bearer has been granted whether in the invisible world already, or which he brought with him from a former embodiment into his present existence. This kind of clairvoyance is the best, but very few human beings do enjoy it, being hence born clairvoyants, who have developed this capacity to such a degree, without any effort at all, that they can practice it immediately. A second kind of clairvoyance is the one which, according to an involuntary shifting of elements in the spirit, occurs spontaneously and is therefore to be regarded as a pathological symptom. A shock in the case of severe illness can also cause the capacity of clairvoyance. This happens usually in the case of people who lost their equilibrium as the result of a stroke, a nervous breakdown, or otherwise through a physical or psychical trauma where, as a concomitance, a kind of clairvoyance will occur in a more or less distinct form. This sort of clairvoyance is naturally undesirable for the magician because it will sooner or later lead to a complete breakdown, which not only implies a total loss of power, but is also detrimental to the health and very often the cause of an untimely death. Clairvoyants of this kind are very pitiable indeed, even then if their success should be a convincing proof. To this category belong all the persons who, having a mediumistic predisposition, were induced to clairvoyance by some beings. Nor is this kind recommendable to the magic practitioner, because people like those usually end up in a lunatic asylum. A great number of persons who have been taken to mental hospitals, and who were meddling with problems of spiritualism without a reliable guidance can blame their hopeless condition on spiritualism. And it does not matter in the least whether the motives of this study were earnest intentions or mere curiosity or whatever may have induced them. Another kind bringing about clairvoyance, which also belongs to this group, is the forced production of this power with the help of drugs like opium, hashish, mescal in brackets, peyote, is that peyote? Soma, etc. Soma. This will be without any interest to the magician, because most of these people will fall victims to the addiction of these dangerous drugs, which paralyze the ethical and intellectual faculties, the willpower, and finally the nervous system, injuring, of course, the health as well as the development. By the millions, such cases are recorded in the Orient, but they do occur in great numbers in the Occident as well as in all the other civilized countries too. The magician certainly has the opportunity, as long as he has not achieved the necessary maturity or convincing himself of the existence of clairvoyance and other supernatural occurrences in one way or the other. But usually, and that is the worst of it, he does not stop at this conviction. He too may become a prey to intoxication and fall into the same condition in which so many drug-stricken persons are. For this reason, I will not describe any method in this work which would tempt the magician to experiment on such things, but I shall only point out quite harmless methods which allow clairvoyance to occur automatically, in conformity with the spiritual maturity and as a concomitance of the higher initiation. Another kind of clairvoyance is the one which is caused by impairment or temporary loss of a sense organ. In the case of clairvoyance, the organ concerned will be the eye. Most of the books teaching clairvoyance by starting at an object, a magic mirror, a crystal ball, or at gems are obviously good, but they are not adequate to everybody. These expedients for the development of clairvoyance are useful only in the hands of a trained magician. But they must not call forth clairvoyance by stimulating the nervus opticus, but they are meant only to serve as a mere aid to an eye that is already trained consciously. From the magical point of view, not a single dodge, however highly praised or scrupulously executed, is capable to produce the gift of clairvoyance. This capacity depends, 1, on the talents, 2, on the psychical and astral development and maturity of the magician. Further chapters in which I shall teach how to make fluid condensers will also include instructions for the production of magic mirrors and other appliances. The magician ought not to forget that all the dodges and appliances mentioned here are nothing but poor expedients. By no means, however, are they the real factor which produces the desired result, the genuine clairvoyance. I will finally mention the last kind of clairvoyance, which occurs as a concomitant of the correct magical development, and which is caused through the systematic display of the senses, in this case the clairvoyant eyes. I resolved to quote in this book a secret magical method, which has not yet been mentioned in any other work up to now, but which is exceedingly useful from the Hermetic point of view, as well as by analogy with the laws of the elements. The practice of the development of the astral senses follows below. And I need some water. One moment. The magic clairvoyance. Before I am going to describe the proper exercise, I must premise that we have got to deal here with the aspect of the light. As you know, light is an aspect of the fire and therefore analogous to the will and the eyes. Consequently, what is the point in this experiment is to intensify the imagination of the light, i.e. to imagine the light optically to such a degree as to grant the success aimed at. Take up your asana posture and imagine you are imbibing the universal light in form and brilliance similar to our sunlight from the universe into your body, whether through the pulmonary and pore breathing or imaginarily only. Regard your body as a hollow organ filled completely with this universal bright white light. Now concentrate the quality of clairvoyance into this light in the body, i.e. imagine that the light is penetrating everything, seeing everything and looking through everything. Neither space nor time is any hindrance to this light. Your conviction of this quality of the light has to be rock firm, and not the faintest doubt is allowed to arise. If you are a religious man, it should be easy for you to believe that this universal light is representing a part of God, who owns all the qualities described here. As soon as you have sucked in the light into your body in this manner, together with the quoted qualities, and if you can inside feel its tension and penetrating power, do accumulate the light with the help of your imagination from the feet and hands towards the head, compressing the light to such a degree that it includes both your eyeballs. You can also fill first one and then the other eye with the accumulated light as described here, if this way should be more suitable for you. There are magicians who develop and enliven clairvoyance in one eye only, leaving the other eye free and undeveloped. It is left entirely to the scholar's judgment whether this pattern is worth imitating, but as I see it, it is far better to prepare both eyes equally for clairvoyance. As soon as you have performed the accumulation of light in your eyeballs, imagine that your eyes have got all the abilities concentrated in the light. Endure in this exercise for 10 minutes at least. And if you are quite sure that your eyes, which are imaginarily filled with the universal light, have also accepted the quality of this light, allow the light with the help of the imagination to disperse again, whether directly from your eyes into the universal ocean of light, or to enter your body in its original form and from there dissolve in the universal light. Both the methods described here are equally good, and the outcome will be the same. The important point is that the eyes, as soon as they are set free from the light, will become receptive again in the normal way. This is necessary for the simple reason that the astral eyes of the magician developed in this matter might not become oversensitive, so that they would be unable to discern what the normal eyes or the clairvoyant ones are seeing. Supposing the magician did fail to dissolve the concentrated light, his eyes would probably remain clairvoyant, and he would hardly be able to distinguish between material and spiritual matters. Therefore, he ought to have his power of clairvoyance well in hand, and allow it to become effective only if he thinks it desirable. By frequent repetition of this exercise, the magician will achieve such a skill that he can allow his clairvoyant eye, the so-called light eye, to function in a few moments. Eyes prepared in this manner, whether closed or open, can see anything the magician wishes to, whether in a crystal globe or a glass ball, on a polished wardrobe or in a magic mirror. His clairvoyant eye will see everything. The quality of the clairvoyant perception does then depend exclusively on the purity of his character. An excellent remedy contributing to a quicker success and influencing very favourably on the physical eyes, so that people suffering from a bad eyesight or stricken with an eye complaint can gain a profit not only from the magical point of view, but from the sanitary one as well, in the preparation of a magical ophthalmic fire lotion. The following ingredients are necessary. 1. A large bottle of distilled water available in any drugstore or dispensary. 2. Some chamomile flowers, dried or fresh. 3. Some Herba euphrasia, also fresh or dried. 4. 7 to 9 thin ossia or hazelnut switches, which you will find in the open fields. They are to strip of leaves, to cut up even, and to tie with a string at some spots. Then let the bunch of switches dry near the warm stove in the sun or in dry air. 5. You will also need a piece of filter paper and a small funnel. Now you can begin to prepare the eye lotion. Pour 0.44 pint, in brackets a quarter of a litre, of aqua destillata, distilled water, into a clear container. Put it on the fire, and when it begins boiling, add 2 teaspoonfuls of the chamomile flowers and 1 teaspoonful of Herba euphrasia. Let the whole boil up for a few seconds only, take it off the fire and cover it with a lid. After 10 minutes, filter it into another clean container. When the tea has cooled down, take the bunch of ossia or hazelnut switches, light the loose ends on an open flame and let them burn. Now dip the blazing ends into the tea. By doing so, the material fire element has been transferred into the tea, which one can already regard as a fluid condenser. I will write about this in detail in a further chapter. Now filter this fluid condenser through the filter paper funnel into another clean container. This filtering is important to remove eventual chips, fragments of charcoal and ashes produced by dipping the burning bunch into the liquid. Pour the tea into a bowl or a saucer and put it in front of you. Now do inhale the fire element through the lungs or pores or through both organs at the same time into your body and fill it entirely with this element. At this projection there is no great attention to be given to the intensity of the warmth, as you will feel it in any case, but do not forget that the fire element has to be the bearer of your desire, which you transferred to the fire element through your imagination. After transferring your desire for having your material eyes strengthened and your astral eye developed to the fire element, in the same way as you perform the experiment of the light accumulation, project the fire element, whether by way of the solar plexus or one of your hands or your breathing, into the liquid. I need some liquid. Oh, don't drop the bookmark. The eyes have it. If you get the feeling that the projection is not sufficient, repeat the experiment several times, but no more than 7 to 9 times, whereby the so prepared condenser will factually turn into a strong essence, which has not only a very fine effect on the eyesight, but also strengthens, enlivens and develops the astral senses. Now lock up the fluid condenser in a clean bottle and keep it in a cool spot. The ophthalmic fire lotion may be used for strengthening the eyesight or for magical purposes. In the case of a weak eyesight, one could drop this liquid condenser simply into the eyes without any hesitation, because the two herb combination is anti-inflammatory and an eye tonic. But for the magic practice, i.e. the development of the astral senses, it will suffice to moisten a piece of cotton wool wrapped in gauze or a strip of clean linen, and to use it as a poultice during the experiment of animating the eyes with light. Oh, sorry. Later on, as soon as the astral eyes are better developed, the fluid condenser poultices can be emitted, and it will be sufficient to perform the accumulation of light in the eyeballs. After frequent repetition, when the physical eyes are already developed by these light exercises, one has only to direct the attention to the astral eye with the desire for being able to see with it. Apart from the duration of the experiment, one might also use these poultices before going to bed to achieve an automatic effect during the night. But there is a slight disadvantage. The eyes and the eyelids would become supersensitive as a result of the intrusion of the fire element from the frequent use of the poultice. It is therefore more serviceable to use the poultices for the duration of the exercises only. The poultice is to be fastened with a scarf during the exercise to prevent it from falling off. This magic operation is to be performed without the presence of other persons. One ought to try to keep the poultice, as well as the essence for a certain time, so it needs not to be renewed from one experiment to the other, and does not fall into the hands of incompetent people, not even members of the family. If the scholar has worked through all the foregoing exercises, he will develop his eye for clairvoyance in an absolutely harmless way in a few months' time. When well talented, even after a few weeks, following the method described and recommended here, and he will be capable to fulfill all the other tasks and operations still ahead of him in the knowledge of magic. It is quite impossible to quote all the successes obtained with the different methods of clairvoyance mentioned here. They are so manifold and so reasonably obvious that it must be left to the magician himself how far-reaching he will be able to train his astral eyes. At all events, he may be warned not to make boast of the abilities he did win, or even worse, to misuse them to harm his fellow men. He ought to utilize them solely for the benefit of mankind. Time and space won't be a handicap to him, and there will remain nothing at all concealed before him as far as his clairvoyant eyes are concerned. The magic development of the astral clear hearing. This development is very much in line with the one of clairvoyance. The faculty of the astral clear hearing is based on the fact that one is able to hear voices even at the remotest distance, and at the same time to understand the language of all beings. At the beginning, this faculty manifests itself in thinking aloud, coming from the inside, whether from the heart region or from the plexus solar. After a long spell of exercising, the astral clear hearing will develop to such perfection that one can distinctly perceive everything with the supernormal hearing, similarly as if there were normal talking to anybody. They were. This faculty is also a privilege of all magicians, and without it there would scarcely be any progress in magic. For this particular reason, this type of astral clear hearing has to be handled with the same carefulness as astral seeing, and the exercises destined therefore must not be neglected at any rate. All that has been said about astral seeing, about predisposition for it, about pathological symptoms will turn out to be true, as well as for clear hearing and clear feeling. In connection with this topic, I am going to treat the aforementioned faculty. Let us turn without much ado to the practice of clear hearing. For this exercise is required nothing else but a fluid condenser and a small piece of cotton wool. Make 2 small tampons from it in the size of the cavity of the ear. Moisten these cotton plugs a little with the fluid condenser and put both of them in front of you. According to the instructions you were given for training the astral eyes, you will work now with the air element, filling your body with it by breathing through the lungs and pores. The whole body, like a balloon, is assumed to be filled with air. Do imagine in this air principle the desire for the faculty of clear hearing in your astral body as well as in the material one. Provided you have the inward certainty that the air element has been sufficiently impregnated with your desire and with your imagination, do project the prepared air element into the 2 small cotton plugs, whether through the solar plexus, one of your hands, or your breath, by compressing and accumulating the air element which fills your whole body to such a degree that it will adopt exactly the size of the 2 cotton wool plugs in front of you. You may magically impregnate both of the plugs at the same time, or one after the other, with the entire amount of the element. The main point of this experiment is the firm conviction and the unshakable faith that this faculty is developing swiftly in your case. You can use as fluid condensers a strong decoction of chamomile flowers in distilled water. Take 2 tablespoonfuls of chamomile flowers, or 0.2 pint, which is half a litre of water. Filter them after scalding and keep the liquid cool to prevent the fluid condenser from getting mouldy. By the way, a mouldy condenser is by no means ineffective but insanitary. Did you load these 2 cotton plugs several times with the air element, whether both of them at the same time or each one separately? Put both into your ears so that they are completely crammed. Oh, hello, Mr. Raven. Don't mention it. Happy to see you well fed. So they're completely well ground. Now introduce the Akasha principle into your entire head imaginarily. Transfer yourself with your consciousness to the ear region and do imagine the faculty of the absolute clear hearing. Imagine the Akasha principle introduced into your ears is instantly producing the absolute clear hearing power in yourself. After a long time of meditating and concentrating to this effect, dissolve the Akasha principle again in the universal Akasha. Free your ears from the cotton wool plugs and keep them very well, because they must not be touched by somebody else. In case the plugs should fall into the hands of incompetent persons, you will have to prepare new ones for yourself. Otherwise, it will be sufficient to remove the plugs from the ears to allow the accumulated air element to dissolve again with the help of the imagination. It is obviously of greater advantage to use new cotton wool plugs for every experiment and to reload them always anew, as if one can afford the necessary amount of time. Should you like to resort to your astral sense of hearing in one of the experiments, all you need to do is lead the Akasha in the size of your auricles into the inner acoustic ducts of both your ears. After a long time of exercising, you will be capable to use clear hearing for your purposes. As soon as you do not need this faculty anymore, try to lead the Akasha element back into the original form, that is the universal Akasha, by introducing the Akasha principle into the acoustic ducts. The mental as well as the astral hearing is influenced and developed, and you will attain to the physical clear hearing with the help of the concentrated air element. Anyone meditating intensely on this problem will instantly find the coherence and may compare the operation with the wireless, where it is likewise the ether as the Akasha principle of matter and the air, which are playing their part as transmitters of the sound waves. One moment. Development of the astral clear feeling. Before passing on to the development of the astral clear feeling, let us take up our magical diary and transfer ourselves to the time when we were engaged thoroughly with the introspection of the various good and bad qualities. According to the magic mirror, we could establish then which of the qualities corresponding to the element in question were predominant in our mind. How important introspection then was indeed is clearly shown by the fact that just this preponderance of the element concerned points to our astral sensory center. If the fire element had been dominant, the sensory center was the head, to put it correctly, the forehead. If it has been the air element, it is the heart. In the case of prevalence of the water element, it is the solar plexus. And if it has been the earth element, the sensory center is in the hands or the thighs. Having thus established our astral sensory area, let us pass to the practice. You have to act in exactly the same manner as you did when training the two previous senses. The necessary requisites are a piece of flannel, linen, or a cotton wool plug which you lightly moisten with a fluid condenser. This condenser may again be a strong decoction of chamomile flowers. At this performance, you are loading your body at once with the water element through pulmonary and pore breathing, and with the desire that this element may produce clear feeling in you. The term of clear feeling means the faculty of perceiving and feeling all the phenomena and powers occurring in the elements and in Akasha. To this field also belongs the faculty of psychometry, that is, the clear perception of present, past, and future of any object, letter, and so forth. Even the power of materialization of any thought, any being, no matter whether the point in question is a self-created being or an entity already existing in the Akasha, belongs to this domain. Other faculties connected with sense perception and touch sensation can also be registered in the category of clear feeling. Intuition, too, is originating in clear feeling. These few examples may be sufficient to explain the clear-feeling power. As soon as you have accumulated the water element in the whole body through the pores and through pore breathing, load it with the intense imagination of the faculty of clear feeling. You must be absolutely sure that it is strong enough to arouse this faculty really in your astral body. With the help of imagination, draw the water element from your body, whether through the solar plexus, the forehead, hand, or by breathing out, accumulating it in the cotton wool plug or the piece of flannel soaked in the fluid condenser. You may repeat the loading, but no more than 7 to 9 times. When doing this exercise, do not take up your routine posture, but lie down comfortably on a couch or on the floor, whatever opportunity you have got. The main condition is to lie rather flat, only the head remains a little higher. To develop the astral clear feeling, you need not directly utilize the water element, but only the magnetic attractive power of the water. Before starting the exercise, put the fluid condenser on the established sensory area. This exercise has to be performed with your eyes closed right from the beginning. Now do imagine your entire body is, as it were, actually swimming in the universal water element. Similarly, as if you happen to be in the center of the surface of an endless ocean. You feel nothing but water, and again water only. Be very attentive, for it is quite possible that during this exercise you will fall into a state of doze and, in spite of all your carefulness, fall really asleep. In that case, make up your mind never to give in to sleep the next time. For if this should become a habit, you would have great difficulties to fight against sleep while doing your exercises. In the previously mentioned imagination, you have transferred yourself with your consciousness to the sensory area, and now imagine that the magnetical power of the water you have accumulated within you will enliven the finest particles of your sensation field and produce the astral clear feeling. You must be able to imagine the magnetic attractive power of the water so intensely that it becomes an incontestable reality. If, by long meditation, you have got the firm conviction that you have duly enough enlivened this sensory field, drop the imagination of universal water gradually, dissolving the water element with your body into the universal element again. Take off the fluid condenser and reduce the concentrated element to the universal element here also. The exercise is now at an end. In case you should like to use the sensation field practically at one time or the other, the transfer of the consciousness into this field will be sufficient to put this faculty into action immediately. To further the display of the astral senses of seeing, hearing and feeling, I deem it opportune to warmly recommend to you to continue these exercises. Even if you can spend very little time on them only, the real success will not be far off. We shall omit the development of the other senses for the time being, because they are not important enough for the practical use of any magician. It is up to the scholar now to think out a scheme for himself to develop the other senses with the help of these 3 training methods. The faculties acquired by this astral development of the senses are so far reaching that there is no need at all to talk much about. The enjoyment in the success can be compared in a way to a blind person who, deprived of the eyesight for years, is suddenly able to see again.